This exercise is a great opportunity to remind you guys it's not so important what an exercise is called, and it's more important how you execute it. Just because something is called a squat doesn't tell you what it works. You can do a quad dominant squat, you can do a glute dominant squat, depending on how you execute it. This exercise is called a deadlift. It's called a heel elevated hex bar deadlift. Normally, when you think of deadlifts, you think of working your glutes and hamstrings and your lower back, your posterior chain. But that's because usually a deadlift is done with a big hip hinge, right? Normally your deadlifts are done like this with your butt back. We are going to be using this for more quads. Actually, it's gonna be a very all-around movement. It's not gonna be the most quad dominant, but it's gonna be a bit of everything. And so this is a good moment to remind you, it's not about what exercises are called. Just because something's called a squat or called a deadlift doesn't tell you what it works. It's about how you execute the movement. This movement will be executed a lot like you guys might squat. It's going to be more squatty than hingy. And so we are going to be elevated up on the heels, and I'll give you guys a snapshot of what that looks like right now. When you look at that, you can see that my wedges kind of have their butts together, slightly externally rotated. That's gonna be a pretty good starting place for most people. If you have smaller wedges, if you don't have the prime ones, I don't think the butts should touch. They should be a couple inches apart for sure, but a little bit of external rotation will be helpful. Now, when it comes to executing the movement, what we want is, because we're heels elevated, because we're trying to get a little bit more quads, we're going to let the quads travel forward. When you think of a deadlift, most people think of something like this. That's not what we're doing. And so I'll shut up and we'll demonstrate a few reps. As you can see, my knees are traveling out over the toes, my torso staying relatively upright, and I promise my quads are working a ton, but so is everything else. What I'm not doing is this. It's not a hip hinge motion. It's more of a traditional squatty type motion, although again, those names don't really tell us a whole lot. Chest relatively upright, knees out over the toes. Now, when it comes to depth, everyone's going to be individual based on their mobility. You want to keep the knees going out over the toes. You don't want the butt to go too far back, although it will go back a little bit. And you want to keep your torso relatively upright, although it will lean forward slightly, and that's okay. Depending on which hex bar you're using, which wedges you're using, and the length of your arms and your mobility, that will decide whether you're gonna hit the plates on the ground or not. I want you to go as low as you can with good technique, send a form video, and I'll help you tinker your range of motion from there.